you may feel a little bit different than people that you know who are just doing normal jobs, who are just doing what everyone else does. And when you stand out like that, you may feel a little bit uncomfortable. Welcome to How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s. It's the podcast where we love to get excited and down to brass tacks, talking about the real things that help you move the needle when you switch from any other career into a high-tech or IT career. And this is where we're going to discuss the real hints, tips, tricks, and the methods and the protocol that help you switch into a real tech career. So welcome. You have decided that you want to change your career, change your life. You want to provide for your family, and you want to be different than you ever have before. But you want to make sure that you don't make any mistakes. So maybe you don't even make any progress because you're not sure if it's the right thing to do. Especially when all of the people around you aren't doing anything different than they've been doing for their lives in their 20s and 30s. And so, how do you push forward, or should you even push forward? Maybe this episode will save you a lot of time. But really, what this is going to do is encourage those who should move forward and switch into a tech career, and discourage those who really shouldn't be doing anything other than their normal career, their normal job, and taking it easy. By that, I don't mean something negative. By that, I mean maybe this isn't for you and you're not cut out for it. So this episode is hopefully going to help you decide and affirm what's already true inside of you. One of the things that happened to me when I was switching into a tech career was that I was doing a lot of things, doing a lot of business with websites that I was creating. I was learning how to sell them, how to make them better, how to make them able to be interacted with by free and also paying customers. And I was just developing things and making them work and figuring out how it works. I would go down to Barnes & Noble. I still remember getting a book called Sam's. It wasn't Sam's Club, but it said Sam's. That was the publisher, I think. And it was a thick book, maybe 2 inches thick or 3 inches thick, with big pages. And as you thumb through the pages, I remember that Barnes & Noble, I believe it was in Waterloo, Iowa, thumbing through the pages and seeing code in the pages. On the page, I could copy that code. And I remember buying it. I think it was $40, which back then was a lot. And so I bought it and went home and started developing a website, my very first website, using things other than HTML. And the more I think about it, the more it's possible that I got this down in Des Moines, Iowa. I think that actually was it. I think I got another book up in Waterloo. So I was living in Des Moines at that time. So correction, already made a mistake here on the podcast. It doesn't defeat the point though. I remember getting that book and just thinking, this is the biggest investment, or I didn't really think investment. This is the biggest book I've bought. Not just in price, but size. And it was different. I brought it home and it was huge and it was heavy. And I just felt like all of a sudden, all this new world was opened up to me that wasn't there before. I was going to learn how to make a site dynamic. And back in those days, a website that was dynamic and interactive and could change if you hit a button, and information was saved to a back-end system, and then it would change the way that the next page showed up, or it would process a transaction or create an image that was based on the interaction and the input that could save users in a database. All of that was brand new. And if it wasn't brand new, I thought it was. It seems like it was pretty cutting edge compared to what we have today, of course. Now, if you're old enough, you'll remember that Google started uh, to become popular in the early 2000s. And when I was developing my website, it was in 2001, 2002, and Google was very new. I remember seeing it and trying it. Hotbot was out. Ask Jeeves was out. There were a couple other search engines, but Yahoo, I think, may have been out. But here's the deal. The point is not when I started to get into tech. The point is that the feeling I had was that I was doing something like a special mission. I didn't know anyone else in my area or that I could interact with who was doing this. And so what was I getting myself into? I sometimes wondered. But as soon as I wondered that, I looked back in the book and started to get busy again, building new features in a website. After that, I started to feel like I had an asset, like I was able to take what I had learned and sell it to other people, or at least help other people like churches or organizations. And I did that. It was a part of me then. But when I first started, and if you're first starting, you should know that if you feel odd or weird or like you've got to dig a hole in a cave and get in there for a while away from the family and you feel like that's not what a normal person does, well, the truth is there are no normal people, but there are people who care about themselves, their spouse, and their families, and they do what it takes to get things done and level up in life. And so that's the feeling that I had. At first, it was a little bit odd and a little bit weird. And when I was going to church, I didn't have anyone that was doing what I did. Nobody knew how to do the things I did. And when I went to any other events and met new people, they didn't know what I was doing. And when I told them what I was doing, they didn't understand. And in some ways, that was a positive because I knew that I was making a big change merely based on the reaction from other people. It was almost as if I was speaking a different language to them when I started to describe some of the things I was trying to do. And that almost helped me because I knew that I was onto something. And I knew that the more I got into it, as I said before, the more I was building an asset, something I could use to help my family in the future. And that's how I started my transition into a tech career, even though at the time it was not my intention. I never wanted to get a job in tech. I wanted to start companies in tech. And that's what led me to building and then hiring out for others to build websites. Some of them became small and medium to big as far as annual budgets, and most of them did not. And so my dream was not to get a job in tech, but to start a big tech company. And I just didn't have what it took to do that. And then my job became when I got my first tech job, it was as if that was the perfect thing for my family because I could go, and this is probably something that you want to do, is go do your job, come home, and be able to spend time with the family. And certainly that was a good thing for me and my family. And certainly that could be good for yours as well, with a higher income and greater flexibility of schedule. With that, getting into a tech career, and I'm not trying to sell you on it, but it is true, there are probably very few careers that offer you a future like a tech career. And by tech, I also mean AI and all that that is bringing. There are other careers that will always be around. We will always need plumbers. We will always need construction. We will always need infrastructure and doctors and pilots. even with all the tech, all of those jobs will still be around, but tech will support those jobs. And that's why we need people in tech. To encourage you, when you talk to other people and they ask you what you're doing in life, one of the things you could tell them is that you're looking to switch into a tech career. And so you're taking some training. I would never oversell and set expectations high, but I would set my goals high if I were you. Instead of just walking around talking to people about what you do for your current job, you could tell them that you're doing your current job, but you're taking some training. And if it's in cybersecurity, for example, tell them I'm working at Starbucks while to help me afford my cybersecurity training. So start to talk in a way that's excited and happy about you making a transition and a change in your career. Also, make sure, as I mentioned briefly, make sure you set your goals very high and then make some plans on the back of those goals. Without setting your goals very high, you're going to find that you either get bored or you miss the goals and then get disappointed that you can't even reach your lowest goals. So set high goals and strive for them and make plans and expect to try to hit those goals. And this is very difficult. I will tell you, and this is to burst some of your, this will burst your bubble if you are just kind of dipping your toes into switching to tech. All right. So be warned here. But I will tell you that if you can't get yourself onto a computer or into a book at least once a day or once every other day and figure out how to do some training for many days in a row, this is just not for you. To change into a tech career, and I mean a high-tech career, not a career that, say, let's go back to the barista example. It's not a tech career to be employed as a barista at Starbucks and then be the person there that knows how to operate a new cash register, a new point of POS machine. You operating that as an employee at Starbucks is not a tech job. However, I bet that if you were doing that job and you were the best at operating the POS system, the POS, you would be able to be someone who might get very interested in some aspect of a high-tech career, such as UX design, such as quality engineering. Even perhaps, if you've never tried it before, you should try writing a bit of code. Maybe start with some easy stuff like JavaScript. And you may find yourself interested in those things, but I'm talking about one of those careers, not someone who uses tech at your job, because we all do that. Almost everyone does that. So, the plumber that came by and helped us with our floor drain, opened up the floor drain with 6 kids and 2 adults in this house. And then recently, some of those have moved out, but as they grow up. But then we have lots of visitors at our house during holidays, and we're excited. But one of the things that happens is the washing machine is used a lot, and that goes straight down the drain, and we can't stop all the lint, but we can stop a lot. But the person who showed up, the plumber showed up, and he had an app that he used to bill people. And I was quite amazed. I made comments about his app that he was using. So he was very good at that, and he could use it. And everybody is using tech. So a high-tech career, though, the one that you're here to listen about and to learn about, it's the type of career where you are creating, sustaining, innovating, managing, interacting with on a daily basis in the tools that everyone else is using, in cars, in other jobs like that plumber's job, like the POS at Starbucks. You're building all of that on a team. That's a high-tech career. Or you're making sure it's sustainable, like a cybersecurity position. So, you're going to feel a little bit weird. And if you haven't felt weird or odd or out of place or a little bit nervous or anxious about where you're trying to learn, a little bit overwhelmed, if you haven't had any of those feelings when you're trying to switch into a tech career or just navigating the road that it would lead you down as you switch, if you haven't had any of those feelings, then you possibly aren't cut out for tech. And I'll tell you why. And that is because you probably have not even gotten very far yet. And that's because it's because you probably have not even done anything that's difficult yet. And I will give you some slack here. If you just last week started to look into switching into a tech career, I'll give you that. You're going to run into these difficult feelings. But if you've been doing this for a year and trying, quote unquote, trying to switch into a tech career and you're still stuck and you haven't had feelings of overwhelm, then there's a problem. You really haven't done anything very well yet. And you haven't done anything big yet. You will hit walls and you will feel overwhelmed and you will feel a little bit worried and concerned that you can even make the switch if you are doing the right things. So congratulations. If you feel those things, you're possibly on the right path. Now, to a point, you will have to suffer through some of those. But, and this is where I help some people just need to know that that's okay, that the overwhelm is normal, and that's where I can help. But if you've never encountered those things before, I would look out and maybe this isn't for you. So be aware, dive in, be okay with feeling out of place and finding areas of your home or in your community to go and work on things, doing deep work and finding focus and making real progress toward big goals. That's what I have for you today, and I hope it was a little bit enlightening about this huge journey you're embarking on. How to Switch to a Tech Career in Your 30s and 40s is the podcast that tries to help you switch into a tech career, no matter what your background is, give you some support and some encouragement along the way. Now, if you're stuck and you need some help, give me an email at info@techlead.com, info@tekleed.com, all spelled wrong. And if you're looking for a Facebook group to get involved in or anything else, you can look at the show notes and we got some info down there. Until next time, my name is Brooks Haynes and I've been your host today, and I thank you for listening. From the shores of the Vermilion River in southeastern Minnesota, have a good day.